In 2022, RUCI launched its project on responsible cyber behavior. The objective of the project is to understand how different countries from different regions and contextual realities perceive responsible behavior in practice when it comes to their activities in cyberspace. So this means looking at how these states hold themselves accountable for their actions. It also takes into account how they look at what malicious cyber behavior looks like from their national perspective and how do they engage internationally to think about the rules of the road. Since 2004, the United Nations has convened a series of processes to discuss exactly this question. And in that process, throughout the past 2 decades, member states from all different regions have discussed at least 5 different topics. This includes confidence building measures, the applicability of international law in cyberspace, cyber norms, so voluntary non-binding norms for responsible state behavior, regular institutional dialogue, so in which format should that discussion be held, and also capacity building. In addition to that, throughout these past years, these member states have agreed on 11 norms on this topic. And while states have agreed on these norms, both state and non-state actors have been a key part of the increasing and evolving cyber threats we have seen in the past 2 decades. And many of these threats have targeted critical sectors in our societies, which include, but are not restricted to, healthcare, education, transport, nuclear subsidiaries, you name it. Lack of action and commitment to address irresponsible behavior in cyberspace or malicious cyber activity comes with significant social and economic costs. As a recent report says, a data breach costing somewhere around $4.5 million US. And it also comes with diplomatic costs when certain states, whenever, say, being a safe harbor to malicious cyber activity, don't actually abide by these international norms. But the 11 norms are only one dimension of this debate on responsible cyber behavior. And that is why this project looks at least 3 sub-areas. So first of them, and obviously, international responsibility. This includes the commitments of states to these norms, but also to implementing or being clearer on how international law applies to cyberspace. It also includes looking at other multilateral fora and how states have committed in other spaces, be it regional organizations or other platforms on these topics. It also includes looking at domestic responsibility. So you cannot think about those international norms without thinking about how they are transposed or translated to those national environments. So looking at domestic responsibility includes looking at national strategies, national cybersecurity strategies, looking at policies, looking at institutions and how countries have sought to develop those throughout time, and how do they justify their roles and responsibilities at the domestic level. And finally, it also includes looking at operational responsibility. So states throughout the past years have sought to conduct certain types of operations, cyber operations, be it offensive or defensive. So how do they justify doing what they do? How do they justify developing cyber commands or acquiring certain types of technologies that might be a little bit more intrusive? What's the fine line there in terms of legitimate use of those types of tools and technologies? And in these 3 layers, the objective is to have a more nuanced perspective that is regionally sensitive and more reflective of the practices that these different states have conducted so far in thinking about what responsibility means beyond just the UN norms. So what does responsible cyber behavior mean in practice? And if different countries perceive it differently, how can we study it in a way that's more regionally sensitive and in an evidence-based manner? That is why this project seeks to respond to those questions in at least 3 ways. So the first one is that we are developing a responsible cyber behavior guide series. It's one paper for each of the 3 dimensions that I mentioned. So international, domestic, and operational responsibility. Secondly, we're also launched in 2023 the Global Partnership for Responsible Cyber Behavior, which is a platform for research and dialogue with researchers from across different regions, with over 70 scholars joining and discussing from their own regional perspectives what this means, and also bringing policymakers to help inform the conversation. And thirdly, we are organizing the Securing Cyberspace Conference in October 2024. So the objective of the conference is to serve also as a platform for dialogue where we bring stakeholders from different sectors to discuss some of the key topics across these three dimensions of the Responsible Cyber Behaviour project.